If you run a real estate portal, you absolutely should back your product and your dev team to do pretty much everything that you think they should be able to do, right? But can you honestly say that they can do all of these things without any outside help? Can they do interactive property staging? Can they do real-time renovation estimates? Can they do seamless furniture shopping, neighborhood analytics, dynamic listing enhancement, content customization, automated clutter removal? Can they do all of those things without any outside help? Chances are they probably can't. If they need some outside help, nothing wrong with it. They should be talking, or you should be talking, to our sponsor, PropTex, with two X's. They help real estate portals around the world with all of those things and more. If that sounds good, head to PropTex with two X's.com or hit the guys up on LinkedIn and obviously say that we sent you. Hello and welcome to the PPW pod, bringing you news, views, and interviews from the world of real estate marketplaces and PropTech. Back after a short summer break, I'm joined by Harvey. How are you doing, Harvey?
Very good, thank you, Ed. Internet notwithstanding.
And Simon Baker. How are you, Simon?
Fantastic. It's good to see you guys again after that short summer break. It's like the Grand Prix, right? Where they have a 3-week break, couple of races, and they have another summer break. And how many breaks do you need for summer?
I don't know. Where are you coming from today, Simon? We haven't asked. Your background looks very fancy.
I'm in Miami today.
Lovely.
Beautiful.
Okay, so we're back for a news roundup because even if we might be on a summer break, things are still happening in the industry.
Oh, they are.
So we will start with, the headline that Harvey's put on the top of show notes today, REA Group's CEO search. This is, it's been going on for quite a while. Harvey, why don't you fill us in?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. In February this year, Owen Wilson decided he was going to step down from REA Group as CEO, and it's been pretty quiet ever since. But we got an interesting story last week from the Australian Financial Review, and 3 names have been put on the shortlist. Bit of fun, this one. So let's go through the names, shall we? So an internal hire, potentially Melina Cruikshank. We also have a semi-internal hire, potentially, with Damien Eales from Realtor.com. And we also have an external potential from Auto Trader. It is Nathan Coe, a fellow Australian. Those are the 3 names on the shortlist, but that's just the start of the story. So let's get into it, Ed.
Yeah, thank you. So this is interesting for a few different reasons. It's being implied in, the 2 kind of articles that I read reporting this. It's being implied that there's a bit of a dispute or 2 parties at loggerheads here about who is going to end up in this position. Supposedly, you've got REA Group, Owen Wilson wanting to put Melina Cruikshank forward, who's this internal hire. She's also worked for Domain, so she obviously knows a lot about real estate portals in Australia. Then you've got supposedly News Corp, which is the majority shareholder, putting forward Damien Eales, who's the current CEO of Realtor.com. And then intriguingly, you've got this other kind of third possibility of this guy, Nathan Coe from Auto Trader. We'll go straight over to Simon for this one because it's a relevant person to be asking here. I'm assuming you don't have any insider knowledge. Simon, what's your thoughts
I have none.
here?
No, and to be honest, I don't know these people, so I'm going to approach it from a logical perspective. So let's think about this, right? You've got Domain being purchased by CoStar, so so you go from having a relatively sleepy competitor to one that's going to be turbocharged in a market where you're the dominant player. Now, simultaneously, the market is changing with AI agents, how search is changing will change over time, and the role of AI that will play in helping real estate agents better understand their marketing spend. Okay, and whether the REA and domains of the world are being truly effective. So we're at this cusp of quite a seismic change in the Australian online real estate marketplace. So then you've got to say, well, who is best equipped to operate in that environment and to lead a market? So you've got the market leader. You need to have leadership that doesn't lose the leadership, continues to deliver the growth that's implied, but in what is now a highly different world. Okay, so then you got to think, well, will an internal person be able to cope with that. Now, we would look at it from an outside-in perspective and say, well, when you've been the market leader for so long, and honestly, making money is like we talk about Rightmove. They wake up in the morning once a year, put prices up, and go back to sleep for 12 months.
I'm sure they would
Okay.
dispute that, by the way. I'm sure they would. They've got a
Of
staff of
course,
500 odd people. I'm sure that's
I
not.
know. I'm not saying that it takes one person to run the place. But what I'm saying is, when you're the clear market leader, dominant player, it's pretty hard to get it wrong. Right? It is really hard to get it wrong. I mean, if we're being really honest, it's hard to get it wrong. Yes, you'll do a whole bunch of innovation and a whole range of stuff, but you're just going to be like Google, where the vast majority of your money is still coming from the same product you launched 20 years ago. That's where the vast majority of your money is coming from. In this case, it's advertising real estate for sale in Australia, and you keep bumping up the prices. It's expensive. Now you've got a world where, oh yeah, I forgot the other fact is probably the ACCC's having a look at you and your pricing power. So you do have a few things that are looking at. So you then got to say, well, who is going to be best equipped to lead an environment that has to become more entrepreneurial again? Right? You have to compete against AI or work out how to harness AI, because I think it's both competing against and harnessing. You're going to have an invigorated CoStar led domain, and you're going to have an environment where you can't keep putting up prices. I think that then says, well, what's the sort of candidate you want? You want someone who is got a track record of success in a highly competitive market, okay, as a leader, and having really done a great job at leading through that environment. And then we look at it. So you've got the internal candidate who clearly knows the business upside down, left, right, center, has worked at domain, so has a good view on the market. No one truly knows the impact of AI, so that's going to come down to the entrepreneurial insights that person has, anyway. So that's a tick. You got someone from Realtor.com. Well, one could make the argument that Realtor.com has not set the world alight. Okay, let's be honest. It's not really challenged Zillow. I mean, all you hear about from the US now is Homes.com. That's probably in second place. Okay, depending on who you talk to. But that's not a good thing. Have you managed to take number 2 to number 3? If so, I would put some question marks there. And then you've got you say Auto Trader?
Auto Trader.
Auto Trader, yeah. Now I've got no idea about the auto segment. But one would think that that's a very competitive segment. Very much you've got to be dealing with super slim margins. You can't just keep bumping your prices up. You've got to be entrepreneurial. You've got to do so. From an outside-in perspective, I'd be saying, well, I need someone who's going to understand the way it currently works, but can operate in a highly probably fluid environment, super entrepreneurial, and can deliver the results. And I think that would mean that, therefore, I could understand why existing other board members who are probably non-news are going, well, we have a different suggestion from the Realtor.com person who I don't know, right? So I don't know these people, but I'm just saying that I would be very you're more concerned about being able to fight the great fight against a very invigorated CoStar, who we've seen in the US through $1 billion at the marketing problem. They're not going to buy domain in Australia and go, thanks very much, and then go back to the US and throw money at that. No, they're going to be absolutely investing heavily into the Australian market to take domain in select regions, select sort of groups of suburbs, back to market leadership.
Could I throw a couple of interesting ideas into the ring here, which is that the story from the AFR said that Nathan Coe at Auto Trader grown market cap by 55% over the past 5 years to £7.2 billion. He's been there for more than 18 years, working his way from strategy director to chief executive. That sounds to me like someone who's fairly entrepreneurial, Simon. So that's one case. Then I would also say that internally, Melina is chief product and audience officer. She shows up in our inboxes quite regularly. She does a lot of the spokesperson stuff for REA Group, especially when they're launching new products and services. Quite a good comms operator. So those are that's the case for those two. But I don't know much about the case for Damien Eales, besides the fact that he'd basically be like a nepo pick, basically, which is he's already inside Move, for example. And what's the case for Damien Eales when there's a fairly obvious case for Melina and Nathan Coe based on what the AFR reported?
Look, I I'm going to be careful what I say here, but one would have to say that within a News Corp led business, it is as much about your skills and capabilities as to your relationships with those people who are senior from you. If you get on really well with them and you understand what they want. I mean, it's a political environment. Let's not call it something it's not. It's a political environment as much as it is as a pure performance environment. And in those worlds, you have to think carefully about who you select. And if you're news and you want to have strong control over the outcome, you want your person in there, clearly, right? Then that person has got a line to the board and another line to probably Lachlan at News Corp head office in New York. So I think I can understand why they would want that, and they've probably been happy with the performance that's been delivered to date. And I think who is it? One of the former CEO, Tracy, I think it was, fellows, went off to the US to sort of look after overall their overall real estate assets, if I remember correctly. So then, there's probably a great relationship there, and that's. But what it's clear is it's a political outcome. Okay, because if it is how the Fin review is talking about it, then it's two sides of the board. It's the major shareholder wanting person X, and probably the nomination and remuneration committee wanting person Y. Right, and there's now a debate about, well, is it a independent listed company with the truly being run that way, or is it just 62% owned by News and they're calling all the shots? Thanks very much.
Okay. We don't have any more insight. It's all speculation, so we'll move on to things
So
that have happened.
we've speculated.
Yeah, we like speculating. We'll come there. There's another thing we're going to mention regarding our speculation in a minute. There has been quite a bit of M&A activity over the last kind of few weeks. Harvey, why don't you run us down a few of the deals that have gone on?
Yeah, of course. The biggest one is that Rocket Companies finally closed the deal for Redfin. That was circa $1.8 billion. They're going to try and buy Mr. Cooper now. There's been a couple of layoffs. About 2% of Rocket's combined workforce has been made redundant after the acquisition of Redfin because there were some overlaps. That's the biggest takeaway from there. Obviously, we have EQT. This is obviously formerly Idealista, majority stakeholder, now owns an 18% stake and also has ownership of Property Guru. They have decided that they want Adevinta's Spain-based assets, including Fotocasa, Coches.net. We have REA Group, or should I say REA India. They are divesting from PropTiger, and they are going to give total ownership and control to Aurum PropTech, who also operate the rentals platform Nestaway. And REA India is also going to take a minority shareholding in Aurum as part of the deal. And also we have Move, which has acquired a company called Zenlist. Those are the major M&A moves from the last few weeks.
Okay, thank you. So Move, by the way, Move, parent company of Realtor.com, who we were just talking about there. We've kind of mentioned it a little bit before that, that at least from an outside-in perspective, it doesn't seem like Realtor.com really took on the mantle of taking over, really taking on Zillow for the number one spot, which was their remit from News Corp. It has seemed, at least from our perspective, that for the last few years, Realtor.com or Move, the parent company, has been kind of reactive rather than proactive. This looks like them being quite proactive. Zenlist is an interesting business. It's one of those businesses that probably wouldn't exist anywhere else. It kind of exists because of the unique way that the US real estate market works, where buyers work with the buyer's agent. It's basically this platform whereby the buyer's agent and the buyer can communicate, share different listings, ideas, all the rest of it, right? It seems like a fairly obvious M&A deal. The EQT deal, coming back to what we were saying about our speculation, I mean, you remember that you and I had a little go at speculating what might happen there. Do you expect EQT to remain the majority shareholder of Fotocasa for the next 18 months?
It's a very challenging. Well, let's break this down. First of all, so EQT has paid, what did they speculate? A couple of billion was the number that was floating
Circa
around.
2 billion, but nothing official.
Okay, so what I do know is there are a number of players who are bidding for the asset. No, so this is what I know. This is what I found out over a few conversations with people. Is they had to be sold as a group. They couldn't break the assets up individually, and that was a tax reason of all things. Something to do with tax structuring and how you couldn't sell the individual assets. It would create a bigger tax bill than if they sold off the individual assets. Don't ask me the technicalities. I have no idea. But I heard that. So therefore, selling it as a group immediately ruled out some of the other acquirers. For example, the obvious one would be Immobiliare, who bought, I'm just talking about from the real estate side now, Immobiliare, who bought Pisos recently, and clearly they don't like, they clearly probably are not great friends with Idealista, I'll put it that way, in Italy, and therefore they probably would like to, between the two of them, have two major battles occurring, one in Italy, one in Spain, with both of them as being major leaders. Now, getting your hands on the Fotocasa asset has to be pretty much a imperative for the team at Immobiliare. Idealista can't buy it for obvious reasons. If you're the market leader, buying number two would be an issue. So then we have a couple of issues here. One is I can't see how EQT can continue to have ownership of the number two and an 18% stake in the number one. That to me sounds like a slight problem. So unless they can make a great argument to the regulators that 18% has no influence, which
They must have had, extensive conversations with lawyers before they spent that money, you would think.
I think, like, well, from what they said, doesn't it? I think it closes next year anyway. So this is an announcement of a deal subject to, would be my guess. I've not seen the contracts, but if it's closing next year, it means that there's going to be a bit of probably a process to go through to ensure that you are allowed to consummate the deal, or they may have to divest themselves of the 18% stake in Idealista, or they will immediately divest Fotocasa, but keep Coaches and Milanuncius and what's the other one? The Jobs one, which I can't remember what it's called. Okay, so I think if I was to speculate, which is what we do, so that's why it's fun, is I think they will hold on to their 18% stake in Idealista, and I think they will divest their stake in Fotocasa in a back-to-back deal with Immobiliare. Okay, and they'll do it at a profit because Immobiliare couldn't buy the asset directly because the previous owners couldn't sell it individually. That would be my hypothesis. Because if I was Immobiliare, I'd be knocking on the door of EQT going, mate, you can't have both. Right? So which is it going to be? Right? And Immobiliare can't buy the 18% asset. So who else? Either they sell that 18% onto someone else and they keep running and operating. But the natural end buyer anyway is going to be Immobiliare. Or maybe the Germans. 24 or maybe even Aviv.
Aviv, yeah.
Right? Because Spain is one of the, if you look at the big markets in Europe, France, Spain, Germany, Italy, there's not a lot of assets actually up for play.
Aviv might be about to have a bit of money in their back pocket as well. There's speculation that they might be selling their Israeli horizontal Yad 2, which is quite a big market leader in Israel, I believe.
Massive.
And some of the numbers I saw there were some bigger than I expected. The valuation there, so yeah, that could happen.
Yeah.
It's sort of
And
speculation.
my hypothesis, and I was having a chat with someone the other day, that of all the assets within the Spanish entity that were acquired, Photocars is probably the cheapest, the least expensive. Okay. Because a lot of the values will be in coaches and will be in the Milanuncius and the job side.
Yeah, because
And
they're leaders in car. I think they're the leader in cars, and almost certain they're the leader in jobs. And the horizontal platform is quite big and successful as well, I understand. Whereas
yes, and
is the number two.
funnily enough, if you read the press release put out by EQT, it goes, what we've sold is the leading this, and a player in the property space. Okay, so even how they're referring to it, so I reckon that you put a price tag on Photocasa as 200-300 million euros would be my guess. Hey,
Yeah,
so if we were to
again,
speculate,
we've strayed into the world of guessing. So it's time to move on.
I think it's educated
Oh, no,
speculation.
it's fun and it's what gets the clicks. But it can't just be a whole episode of guessing. So we'll move on. We've done 21 minutes without mentioning the big story that's been around for it seems like ages now. We have to now mention it because people have said some things and things have happened. Harvey, why don't you bring us up to date on the Zillow listings ban?
Oh yeah, it's a story that won't go away. Now Zillow, which has been sued by Compass, has actually turned around and said, haha, Compass, you're the ones who are hiding listings. Zillow is now, I'm not sure if they're necessarily like counter-suing but they've certainly put a court filing in saying if anyone's hiding listings in the US, it's Compass. So some point scoring and some tit for tat going on over here. And obviously CoStar is never going to stay quiet. And Andy Florence always has an opinion to share. And he gratefully accepted the opportunity to say that Zillow is being an outrageous bully and that maybe is even part of a cartel. So lots of fun quotes coming out of this one. Those are the absolute core headlines. And back over to you, Ed.
Yeah, thank you. The question here that kind of popped into Harvey's head when he was doing the show notes, which we all know ask Simon, is essentially where this is going seems to be they want people to boycott Zillow. They want, everyone to turn against Zillow here. Has a market leader ever successfully been boycotted? Now, we're not talking about the dynamics here are not the same as, say no to Rightmove back in 2021 or whatever. It's not agents deciding not to pay because that's not really how it works in the US. We're just talking in general terms as has a market leading real estate portal ever successfully been boycotted and had to back down? Because I can't think of any instances when that's happened.
I don't think they have been successfully boycotted at a macro level. I think there's a lot of micro things that will have occurred over time, which would be put into the bucket of listening to your customer, right? It's a fine line, right? It's a very gray line between, hey, I think we should go here, and the customer going, I don't want to go there, right? And is that boycotting because I don't buy your product? Or is it going out and being very vocal about it? I think if I'm your average American real estate agent and I'm sitting, as I am sitting here in the US, I'm just worried about selling property. I'm not worried about all this rubbish, right? For me at that level, it doesn't matter. What I'm interested in is, am I getting leads? How much am I paying to get those leads? Can I convert those leads? And can I close out the deal and make my 3% commission, either on the buy side or the sell side? That's all I care about. So I think from that level, this is going to be business as usual. I do think though that at the bigger end of town, where you've got the CoStars and the Zillows who are clearly battling it out in every day, and then you've got these rules being enforced. And I can understand why Zillow wants to do them, because they want to make sure they get all the listings, right? Because if they don't have all the listings, then they've got a problem. But I also understand the other side, which is I'm the real estate agent. It's up to me to determine the best way to handle the marketing of this property. And I happen to have a buyer. I mean, and quite often, real estate agents already have a buyer lined up, already have a buyer, right? Because this little pocket of Miami that I'm currently in, which is a place called Golden Beach, it's just 20 minutes north of Miami Beach, is there's high demand. So I know that there are agents here who have buyers already in their back pocket, and they're going, if you're to sell, it's a quick deal. So why do those sort of things then have to go through what someone in Seattle says? Okay, so I think there's a little bit of both sides here, and I think what Zillow is truly trying to do is minimize any loss of listings that may occur over time, knowing that you'll never get 100%. But if you can minimize it so you get 99.5, and you are perceived as, remember, the other thing is about perception versus reality. None of us know exactly how many homes are for sale, whether it's in Madrid or London or whatever. Right? No one knows. So the perception is Rightmove has all the listings. Zillow has all the listings. REA has all the listings. Whether they do or not within each suburb is actually doesn't matter. The perception is they do. And they can't afford to lose that perception in this game.
What's really interesting about this story, and I've said this before, but I think it's worth stating, is just the level of disagreement and vitriol and headlines that have been generated, because it does seem like it cuts right to the core of how the market works. We've covered this story in its various guises for months and months now. We've written lots of different headlines. I'm interested to know if either of your opinions has changed at all. So we're going to very quickly, you can answer this question with 3 words. You can either say Zillow, you can say Compass, or you can say pass. For my part, I'm still Zillow, but my position is slightly different than when I've, first came across the story. Bobby, in 1 word, are you a Zillow, a Compass, or a pass on this?
Keep things interesting. I'll say Compass.
Okay, Simon?
Compass.
Okay, fair enough. It's good. There's a bit of variation. We can have an argument about it another time, maybe.
But one quick. Let me explain why. I think companies need to compete on the value they deliver, not on the market power they have.
Amen.
It's very, very important. Very important that companies do that. If you are a market leader because you've done 20 years of hard work, that's fantastic. But you still got to do the hard work. You can't then rest on your laurels and then go, you know what? I'm just going to leverage my brand, but not the ball forward in terms of innovation, delivery of value, quality of leads, embracing of AI, and so on.
I actually agree with you, and my position on this has changed.
So wait, you've become a Compass.
However, the situation envisioned where if Compass wins is one where somebody looking for a home is going to have to visit 8 different websites, which is just like, I just can't get past that. I just
No,
can't get past that.
and this is where I disagree. You just use a Perplexity agent, just use a
Not
ChatGPT
everyone's going to
agent.
do that.
Oh, do you know what? Check the numbers. The numbers are moving up.
They are, but
Okay,
we're not there. I don't think we're at a point where that's anyway. This is a whole nother
no.
conversation and argument. But
We should
this
have an official PPW debate about this. I think it would be
Yes.
for a great episode.
Yes. Well, the good news is we have a number of speakers at the conference. We have Mike Del Pret. Okay, he's coming and speaking at the conference, and he is absolutely the voice of the US industry in terms of not of the industry, but of an analysis of the industry. And he's speaking at the conference. So if you're even remotely interested in what's happening there, you should be at this conference in October from 11 to 13. Go to ppweurope25.com. But we've also got Mike Vanderheiden, who's a specialist in SEO, and he has got some very, very good insights into the impact that AI is having on Google search and why it's important for portals and people who have listings to think about how to best present those listings for AI-driven search rather than from Google-driven search. So the world is changing. We may not always embrace that or see that change in front of us, but if you look at the holistic numbers, it's not going back to where it was. It's going in another direction. If it's going another direction, this is just a factor of what's the level of impact and what's the time it takes to get there.
Okay. Yeah, good transition, by the way, there. We'll move on to the financials. So we're in financial season. Harvey, why don't you give us a very quick rundown of who has been releasing numbers and what those numbers have been?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's stay in the US quickly. CoStar has recorded its 57th consecutive quarter of years of every quarter getting at least 10% revenue growth. So congratulations to Andy and the team. Interestingly, CoStar, if you remember, ladies and gentlemen, they launched and piloted a vendor paid advertising product earlier this year, and they announced that they've sold 1,200 VPA packages since. So this is something that's definitely starting to scale up a little bit.
Wait a second. When did they launch it? I remember it was like
Q1.
April.
Q1.
Yeah.
Q1. So
Yeah.
Q1. So here we are, Q3. So in one quarter, you sell 1,200 VPA packages in the United States.
Yeah.
Right. That to me doesn't sound like a large number.
It's
Well,
not a large number,
we're going
but
to get to this. So I wrote an article, which, by the way, a lot of people at CoStar shared and liked, basically saying, what I was saying was, we've had all the headlines, we've had all the debate, we've had all the noise, we've had all the mudslinging. Now it's time for them to make some money. And if you look at CoStar's residential revenue over the last, however long it is, 4 quarters since they started scaling homes.com, it's pretty flat. Now, they will rightly argue that a lot of the kind of quality metrics, so things like conversion rate, which recently they said was, we believe, better than Rightmove, things like unaided awareness among consumers, things like cancellation from agents, are all ticking up the right way, but the revenue has remained quite flat. Now, their reason for this, kind of, if you read between the lines, is, well, we didn't have a sales force in place properly. It's going to take off, etc., etc. And it's like, I'm just waiting for it to take off. It's got to be soon, right? It's got to be soon, surely, because people will run out of patience, and you'll run out of steam a little bit.
Yeah. Well, you've got, there's an interesting thing here, right? It's where you've got KPIs going in the right direction, but everyone always, what are the KPIs? How do you measure conversion? For example, conversion is a wonderful concept. If I'm on eBay, I get it. If I'm on Amazon, I get it. Someone looking to someone buying. But what's conversion? Is it to a lead? If so, what does the lead look like? Is that conversion to a buyer? And there's a lot of question marks in that statement. But I've never seen a company put out, there are a lot of KPIs in the company, and people tend to cherry pick the KPIs that look good to then clearly communicate. I think the only metric that truly matters at the end of the day is are you generating more revenue from the segment? Okay, and if the answer is yes, I am. Okay, and I've got that growth in revenue, then everything is going in the right direction. If my KPIs are going up but my revenue is flat, you've not really cracked the code on monetization, or the end customer is just not valuing what those KPIs are in this process.
So what's interesting here for me a little bit is that we were talking about realtor.com earlier, and we all kind of blithely just kind of said, oh, well, realtor.com's not been setting the world on fire. They've kind of slipped into a number 3 position. Maybe when you look at traffic, and there are so many caveats talking about the traffic, you can say, okay, maybe realtor.com is number 3 now. If you look at revenue, CoStar's residential homes.com is way below Realtor, way in the number 3 position. So maybe there's a reframing that needs to go on a little bit here, and maybe we've kind of drunk the Kool-Aid a little bit, and we now kind of look at Realtor.com as this company that's lost its luster a little bit when actually it's still making decent money. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, the interesting question would be to look at what has been the movement in Realtor.com revenue over the last 10 years. Okay,
I'll
and
probably
then
find it for you.
yeah,
We'll
and
be able
then
to find that.
I think if you go back and you were to draw a line at, say, where are we, 2025? Let's go back to 2020. Let's do straight after COVID, whenever that was, 2021. Okay, and we were to look at what's been the movement in Zillow revenue from the agent segment, the movement in Realtor revenue from the agent segment, and the movement in Homes.com revenue from the agent segment. Okay, that is, I think, and then you normalize them all. So I give them a fact, the back to, and then you see see how that has moved. And what I think would be interesting is which one is gaining momentum. Now, the argument, if I was a CEO saying, great, yes, that's all good, that'll come. I'm focusing on the inputs to get the output. Inputs are eyeballs, inputs are lead capturing, lead management, getting agents to engage with the leads and to understand the value of the leads that we send and so on. Blah, blah, blah. Right, we'd put all those in that bucket, but that has to convert to an outcome, and the outcome's got to be the agents putting their hand in their pocket and spending money. Either they're spending more money or they're taking it and rebalancing between Zillow, Realtor, um, um, Homes.com, their own website, and whatever other local beast there may be, because there's lots of local ones as well out there.
Yeah. About that graph that you were saying, that as you were mentioning that graph, I was thinking, I'm sure I've plotted something like that before, and I have for that article that I was mentioning. To give you it only goes from 2023 because that's when the numbers actually start to be comparable. But essentially, CoStar relatively flat, at least on the scale when it's plotted with Zillow. Realtor.com very flat, actually going down a bit, and Zillow actually going up. So it is interesting how perception and metrics can sometimes diverge a little bit.
Okay,
Anyway,
so even though the Realtor.com is massively larger materially larger, sorry, than Homes, you have to always remember that Homes has come from nowhere, right? And Realtor.com,
nowhere with a 1 billion marketing budget, but yeah, no, I see
yeah,
your
but
point.
they're still come nowhere. But remember, Realtor.com was the market leader. You go back before Zillow. I'm going back to when it was Home something like Home Store.
Yeah.
Then a guy called, there was I don't know if you know the story, but Realtor.com, there was a guy went to jail, the
Yeah,
CEO.
there's a fantastic if I can find it, I'll put it in the show notes. There is an absolutely fantastic thing from, I think it was Inman.com, basically amalgamated all of the kind of headlines and stories that they have published around this into one big story about the debacle that was the early days of Realtor.com, and it's one of the best kind of like reads on the industry I've ever read. I'll try and
It
find
was
it
a
in the show notes.
listed, if I remember correctly, it was a listed company that had the deal with the NAR, ran Realtor.com, called Home Store. Someone Scott
Yeah.
Wolf, no, not Scott Wolf, something Wolf.
So there's
Same Wolf
anyway,
was
the guy went to prison over it because
yeah.
they
Well,
were
they did a round robin. They spent money on someone who then spent money on someone else who then spent money on them, and they counted as revenue. So they're basically using expenses to generate revenue. And that clearly was a slight problem because it beefed up the revenues on public announcements, and those public announcements put the share price way up. And then what happened is then clearly that was like, you can't do that. And then Zillow came along and used their Zestimate product, which has basically made the value of house prices transparent, which of course Realtor.com can't do because then it reduces the perceived value of an agent in that whole process. And before you know it, Zillow is a mile ahead. Realtor.com is in second place. And then there was a whole bunch of people in third. And then, of course, go from there. And then CoStar gets their hands on it and pours the money at the front end, which is we've got listings. We're not going to worry about monetization. We're going to drive audience. Now we're driving leads. So the argument would be now we've got to get monetization in
Yeah.
that process.
It certainly is an interesting kind of history of real estate portals in the US. And like I said, if I can find that article, I will link it in the show notes because it's excellent. Harvey, there are some other big players that have released financials over the last few weeks. Why don't you bring us through them?
Yeah, of course. Rightmove, market leader in the UK, at 10% increase in revenues in their interim report for the first half of the year. ARPA, average revenue per agent, is now £1,609. Move, and then we've also had
Was that again?
£1,609
That's per
That
branch
is
per
as well.
branch.
that's man. That is what's so let's think about this, right? That's 12 times 1,600 is about 18, nearly £20,000 a year.
Yeah,
£20,000
it's
a
the
year, and
cost.
it's 19,000 customer.
It's the cost of a junior agent per year, pretty much, is how I've
Right. So
seen
it's
it.
19. So that's call it £20,000 a year. We know it's a 1% commission in the UK, roughly 1.25 if you're lucky. What's the average house selling price? £400?
£400 is
£400,000, sorry.
very cheap.
Yeah.
400,000. I forgot the thousand in that. I think it's £400,000, more or less. Okay, so you're getting 4,000. You have to do 5 sales a year just to pay your Rightmove bill.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, there's 100. I think there's 1.2 million transactions a year. There's 20,000, so that's 20,000. So what's that? 60 transactions a year. Okay, are roughly per branch, maybe a bit less. So call it 50. So 10% of your transactions each year are just going through the Rightmove.
And we, as a podcast that should be advocating for portals, we should be very happy about this. But we don't sound it.
Well, no, I think it's you got to be fair and balanced in this, right? Because remember, portals are there, they exist for a reason, and it goes back to my comment before, right? If you're waking up, putting your prices up, and going back to sleep, and there's not a massive amount of innovation that's occurring, then I don't think you're really serving the industry, if you ask me.
What's interesting about Rightmove is having a look at their share price. It's bounced back since
It's close to being a historical high at the moment.
And
so
this
the
is
market's got a lot of faith in it.
I remember you, Simon, saying a while ago, back when all the REA Group takeover stuff was going on, maybe Rightmove would be a smart buy right now. Obviously, not financial advice. We have to put that disclaimer in, but I do remember you saying that, and it seems to have played out that way.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Simon.
Yes.
I don't know if you put any money on it or not, but if you had done, you're a richer man now.
Yeah. So I think what's interesting is there's a company called Model Prop in the UK, which is run by a guy called Mal McCallion, who's he used to be at Property Finder when REA owned it, so I was the de facto head of that, and then he then went on to he was at Prime Location, then was at Property Finder, then he was at Zoopla. So he went through it, so he knows that well, and he's basically said, look, the future is about AI-driven tools, not portals. And he's running around England at the moment. You would have seen him on social media if you're in the industry.
Rightmove Resistance Tour.
Rightmove Resistance Tour, which is a good angle because what he's discovered in his journeys, and he has a whole bunch of AI-driven tools that allow offices to run more efficiently and effectively. And he's really doing two things. One is how do you reduce your reliance as a real estate agent on the portals, because they are reliant on them for leads. You've created a world where everyone's reliant on my next Rightmove lead, my next Zoopla lead, and so on to get a transaction done. And also, how do I replace low skill jobs in my office with AI driven technology? So, a simple thing is AI driven phone call answering. He's got some great tools that do that. And I sound like I'm not a shareholder or anything. I just like how he's basically his view is I need to put the power of running my office back into the hands of the principal, of the owner, use with AI as their he calls it an AI brain for the office, so that then the right decisions are made. And I think at the moment, a lot of properties on a lot of portals around the world are pushed to the top of the search and made featured properties, super featured, whatever they call, just because agents are told, you need to do this. What I think the real challenge is the value being delivered can I, and I have a hypothesis that I've always wanted to test, is that if you have 100 people going to a property portal, probably 10 or 20 of them are real buyers at that point in time. They can't all be buyers. There can't be millions and millions and millions of buyers every month going to all these portals in all these countries, because there'll be
Yeah.
far more transactions.
Sometimes you
There are
just
not.
got people like me looking to see whether they've got travel time and if they've got different filters and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, or they're looking for, or they're saying what's sold down the road, what's the price? I want bathroom renovation ideas. Who knows? Okay. Now, if at the end of the day there are 100 people visiting, but only 10 or 20 are real buyers, okay, I bet those real buyers look at every single property for sale in an area, whether it is a super, a $10,000 in Australia ad, right through to a free ad, right? They'll look at them all, and they'll spend 3 months going through everything. Them, their husbands, their wives, their mums, their dads, their aunts, their uncles. Everyone gets sucked into what is the biggest financial decision for 99% of people on the planet. And those listings get shared around. What's your thought? I saw this one. Do you like this? What do you, check out the pictures? What do you think of the bathroom? Do you reckon we could renovate the backyard? Do you think we could dig up the, I don't know, fake grass and put in real grass or whatever? So I think the question is, if I as a seller am only interested in those 10 to 20 people, because that's all I am really interested in. I don't care about the other 80. They have no value to me as a seller. How much do I need to spend to get to them? And my hypothesis is a lot less than what people are spending today.
Yeah,
Agreed.
this is a point we've raised before. I agree with you. I'm sure most people agree with you. However, I would genuinely love for somebody, especially as somebody who runs a real estate portal that makes their money from putting some ads above others in their listings. I would love to have a debate of Simon Baker versus whoever on, is it worth paying to put
I'm ready.
your listing above somebody else's listing? Because I would be very interested to
Yeah.
see the other
But
person's
we have
justification.
to remember though, for a real estate agent, here's the rub. Okay. If I'm at the top of the search and my brand is seen a lot more than others, then I am perceived as being bigger in a market. Once I have a listing, so you go to England, it's exclusive listings. Go to America, it's exclusive listings. Go to Australia, it's exclusive listings, which means I, as the agent, have the right to sell this property for 90 days. And at the end of 90 days, I give up that right. But I'm the sole person who can sell it. What I care is if I've got a listing, and as long as the listing's not crazy priced, as long as I get it sold, I'm happy. So if it's $1 million house and I'm getting a 1% commission, whether I sell it for £1 million house, right? So I get either £10,000, or if I sell it for 950,000, I'm going to get it's only going to cost me £500. Right. So I then spend my whole time walking down the buyer, right? The seller, sorry, right, to clear the market. But by having my brand at the top, I'm winning my next listing.
It's
So
optics, it's PR,
yes,
it's positioning, it's branding.
yeah. So in Australia, the big value for real estate agents and why they keep going back to the home sellers is not because they're suddenly maximizing the price. They're going to maybe at the margin. What they're really doing is saying, look at me, I'm the biggest in an area. when you're coming to sell your house, give me the listing.
Okay, we've drifted into more like fundamental like theory of real estate portals here. There were two other big kind of financials from real estate portal operators in Scandinavia. We won't dwell on them because actually no surprises. Hemnet doing great. Everything's going up and to the right. Vend, who run Finn in Norway, same kind of thing, up and to the right. If you want to read more about them, they're on onlinemarketplaces.com. I encourage you to go and check them out and view the graphs that show that they are indeed going up and to the right, both of those companies.
Yep.
Uh,
And by the way, if you want to hear what Christian has to say about Vend,
oh, yes.
go to a previous podcast, maybe about 3 or 4 weeks ago, if that, 2 or 3 weeks ago, maybe, and hear him. He's got some fantastic views. It was real fun talking to him.
Yeah, that's Christian.
Two times.
Christian Prinzel Halvorsen, who is the CEO of Vend, by the way.
He was also coming to speak at the conference in October,
Yes.
by the way.
Oh, yes.
Yep.
Wait, can we do? Are we wrapping up? Because I got a
We
conference.
are, yeah.
Okay, I got it. This is the conference pitch. You've got to sign up for the conference. We're well over 150 registered attendees already. We've got a great lineup of speakers, from the CEO of Vend to Mike Delprater coming from the US. We've got Zoopla speaking at the conference, and so on. So
there's actually 3 or 4 more market leaders who are about to be signed up, who we're going to talk about, Simon and I, after this, and actually get them over the line.
Yeah. So we've got a great bunch of speakers. We've got a fantastic audience. It's being held in Madrid, where I think we're actually going to have a full house, which means we will end up limiting the number of tickets. Okay. So I suggest, if you want to come, do not delay the decision. Register at ppweurope25.com. That's ppweurope25.com. Tickets are currently €999. They will be going up in the next week or so. I was going to do it at the beginning of August, but I might push it back 1 week to allow those laggards who are listening. And in fact, if you've got to the very end of this podcast, we're going to give you a discount code that will go live later today, called PPW Podcast, give you 10% off. So if you've bothered to listen to this point, you can save 10% or €100 on your ticket. Just use the discount code PPW Podcast, and you will not only get a discount ticket, but you will have the best investment you could possibly make this year into growing your business.
Listening to this podcast is practically making you money at this point with the discounts that you're getting.
We know how we're going to market this episode now. All right, Harvey, Simon, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts, and we'll see you on the next one.
Pleasure as always.
Thanks. Bye-bye.